Jesu Domine.
Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have three amazing friends, or is it five, to join us on this most amazing episode of Movie and a Beer to discuss a film that has issues with counting, as well as a holy hand grenade.
Well, we should hold let's hold them in suspense. Hold on.
All right. Who are my friends and guests, co-hosts?
At this round table, I'm Aaron. I'm your Sir Thomas Mallory expert.
I'm Blake. I'm your British police officer expert.
And I'm Brian, your Vorpal Bunny expert.
Vorpal Bunny. We
watched a very
decided-
classic,
Very
well-known, well-loved,
Wow, oh my God.
oft
The Holy Grail.
quoted.
Monty Python. I think there's a few people here that really are huge fans of Monty Python, and a few that are
And they're
not.
currently speaking.
And that's okay, because there's room in the pool for everybody.
Nee.
So we're going to try to get through this episode without making ourselves laugh and stuff, because we sort of pulled one of those, we're going to start yelling the lines at the screen as they
Because why
happen,
wouldn't you? It's been quoted since what, 1975?
When did this-
1975.
Did it take
1975.
off as soon as it aired, or did it happen a little bit later?
I
little
haven't
later,
a
I
clue.
think.
I haven't a clue.
It was a very interesting film. I saw it on TV. I think it was MTV or something. Somebody had it on.
Interesting.
It was just some random, and it was cut. So there's no nudity. There's no
Correct.
real violence. I mean, other than the Black Knight getting his arms and legs cut off.
And Lancelot murdering
But
all those
and the
wedding
rabbit,
guests.
and the murdering guests, and then the rabbit.
It's so comedic. It's not
Yeah.
really violent.
Cartoon
not
violence.
It's not John
cartoony.
Wick's violent. It's
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny violent.
And
Although, I want to ask, so do you remember what year you saw it, Dan? Because I'm
it
trying
had
to
to have
remember
been
what...
in the late 80s.
Late 80s? I think 93 or 94 I saw it. No, I was in high school. Either 99 or early 2000s was the first time I ever saw this movie.
So
And
there's...
I'm the old timer, so I saw it mid 80s in high school.
yeah.
I'm sure I saw this in the 90s and thereafter, and then I've probably heard the entire collection over many years of playing D&D, because somehow this has firmly established itself in that nerd subculture.
Have you not seen the meme? This is how every D&D party winds up.
It's all about the shrubbery.
For dear listener, if you have by some chance of
Weird.
the universe not seen this movie, there is a quest, and amongst the many side quests, one is to obtain a shrubbery.
Side quest.
Side quest. It is. That's the definition of a side quest.
Yeah.
It is. In order to achieve your final goal, you must do this
Side quest. Right. So
Side quest.
So we've got Arthur, who
King of the Britons.
King of the
King of the Britons.
I didn't vote for him, but
And it's immediately established that, there is. There's a very well-educated peasant who is talking about political structure.
our advanced placement government teacher
Yes.
showed us that scene.
Right.
And then and it was towards the end of the year. He's like, "Oh no, I guess I'll just let it keep playing. Whatever."
Yeah. And it makes sense. It totally is. All right. So before we get much farther into the depths of this movie and the comedic loveliness that it is, we selected a bunch of different beers because I was like, what are we going to drink with this? And I was like, all right. So I found a couple of cans that had can artwork that was sort of appropriate and kind of reminded me of the movie. And then I had this idea, hey, they faced the French a few times. Let's get a French beer. Well,
Mais oui.
good luck finding a French beer. I found a French beer that's not just beer, but
1776, Cronenberg.
Yeah, I was about to say, Cronenberg's,
Stella Artois is French, isn't it?
Cronenberg's a great
Stella
beer.
Artois is not French.
Where is
It's
that
an
from? Is that
international conglomerate.
It's Belgium.
Smash the state.
Smash the state. It is.
Brian's with the
and
peasants for seizing the.
What are
the
you, an
means of
educated
production.
peasant?
And the beer that we drank is a subsidiary of Heineken Europe. So I feel kind of bad that we're drinking big corporate beer, but it was decent. So okay.
That actually was really good.
We-
the
we
one that
will-
we're referencing.
Yeah.
was really
we will
good.
talk about what we enjoyed before
and the
during,
political systems and involved.
all of the stuff later
Monty
on.
Python is chaotic, so are we.
Yes, we are.
Gosh, we really are so far tonight. Okay.
It's been a great episode and a great set of beers. I think they went really well. But again, we'll talk about those in a little bit. All right. So I know that all of us here have seen at least this movie and maybe some other Monty Python vehicles, be it either the TV show or another movie like Life
Dan,
of
this
Brian.
parrot is no more.
Life of
It
Brian.
is no
Meaning
more.
of life.
Yeah, meaning of
Oh,
life.
the
is
show.
good. Just one more mint. That's like the memorable scene from that one. It's like, oh, and he blows
So,
up.
listen, if you're not familiar, and I imagine there might be younger listeners who are not familiar, it's a very It's a comedy troupe. It's a comedy troupe. The film is very episodic. There's a number of skits that are all kind of tied together around an overall narrative, but it is kind of slice of life, one skit to the next.
Yeah.
Real funny.
It's a farce.
Yeah.
It's a lampoon of the classic Arthurian tale.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You get all this mythic background, the once and future king, the Lady of the Lake, Arthur and his knights, with the transformation of Britain from pagan times and 600 or earlier, and then becoming Christian. And here's King Arthur and his knights. They're going to find the Holy Grail.
Mere flesh wound. Get back here.
So you got Tintagel, you got Arthur, you got this kind of semi-historic figure with these other semi-historic figures, Sir Ector, Sir Mordred,
Lancelot,
Galahad,
Belvedere, all of the there's many that are present here, except for Mordred. He was Arthur's enemy, so he wasn't here.
So and there is a ton of trivia about this film and a whole bunch of other things that we'll touch on as we go along. I would say that as this is broken into smaller chunks. I mean, it's basically just
sketches.
Small sketches.
Any sketch group that makes a movie and breaks into sketches, I have a lot more respect for. Although Kids in the Hall Brain Candy is phenomenal,
yes.
But a lot of sketch groups just don't understand the big narrative. Broken Lizard usually nails it, but
it's a different art form. It has different requirements. You need to write it differently, I think.
Mm-hmm. You really do.
So Brian, all natural lighting. I don't think they used any artificial lighting other than on the inside of the castle.
Well,
and even then it was just really sharp.
Tim the Enchanter.
Yeah, Tim the Enchanter used some special effects. But I was like, this is all just outside. Like most of the film is outside.
Part of this is due to the fact that they had a very low budget. This was very early in the Monty Python world. I mean, they had their BBC string budget show for maybe 6 years at this point.
Yep.
This was their first major feature film, and they had a low budget, and they had such a low budget they couldn't afford horses
or stunt doubles. They did all their own stunts, most of them,
and that's why they came up with the
coconuts.
All the gags with the coconut shells to make the clopping of the horse.
There is one scene that has a horse,
awesome.
and he does something really weird, and
it sets up the end of the movie.
It sets up the end, yeah. So again, this is in parts and little clumps, and it does tell a story. And there's parts of each of those little clumps that does play into later scenes. So you have to watch it beginning to end. You can't skip a part. Please pause it if you have to go take a break.
Between sketches, there's many chances you'll have.
Oh,
there's intermissions throughout.
Yeah, there's one intermission.
There's an intermission as they're crossing the bridge of death.
That's literally like 8 seconds long to play a joke. When this was released in theaters, people in the theater would stand up being like, oh, I'm going to go to the concession stand and get some popcorn. And then like 8 seconds later, the intermission's over.
That's a very good bit.
Completely, a practical joke on the audience.
It's such a good bit.
Yes.
They're so
what
funny.
about those intro credits?
And the subtitles in the intro. I had completely forgotten about that joke altogether.
Same. I had
it's like it's almost at least 3 to 4 minutes long, if not 5 minutes long of credits.
It's strange how I remember the credits staff being sacked joke over the run of Moose gags and Swedes.
Those responsible for sacking those have been responsible for being sacked or sacked.
It's a good bit. It's like, all right, well, we fired them. We're not going to undo their work. We fired them. Now we're in charge.
Well, we got to use it because it's already been filmed.
Exactly.
It's already been there.
we have no budget.
And the moose. It's like the moose experts. The moose.
The moose left nostril wiper.
The moose trainer. Yeah.
Both
well, and then a moose costume.
Aaron, you were reading those names pretty well, considering how fast they were coming and how silly they were.
Well, I speak a bit of Norwegian, and that's what helped me out. Swedish and Norwegian are very similar. But
right now we're talking about the first
3 minutes.
3 minutes of the film.
Yeah,
the
literally
head credits.
The head credits had
a lot of jokes in them.
We first were like, what is this stuff at the bottom? Oh, it's not hard sub. No, it's just they're making fun of subbing and foreign films,
foreign language films, yes.
and making fun of the fact that you have no idea what it actually means. If you say it out loud, it makes sense, but if you read it, it doesn't. That's the fun part.
Well, they're making
speak it aloud.
They're making fun of Swedes and moose bites, and going on a tangent about your sister who was bitten by a moose once one time, and how some stranger might tell you this story that you're completely not interested in. Yeah.
So, dear listener, if you haven't seen this film before,
You should.
you should.
Make an
Yeah, all
effort.
two of
You should
right?
absolutely stop listening, go watch it, because the rest is not going to make any sense.
Right. So, you're going to find out that a lot of these things we're talking about, a lot of this film is part of culture.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
nerd
seeped-
culture. A
seeped
subculture.
into
A
culture.
lot of
a
references.
lot of nerd, a lot of college culture too. I would say.
Right,
I mean,
Yeah.
I would say it. A lot of these jokes will feel familiar once you watch the film.
Right.
Burn
right.
the witch.
But I think it's particular to people that play like tabletop role playing games or are part of like nerd subculture, which I will self-identify. I am.
Well,
but
It worked, guys. Let's beat him up
But
now.
if you're a surfer or like a snowboarder or
well,
something, you're not going to
like
get the
theater
same.
kids
Yeah.
would be into it.
I guess it,
Are into it.
the goths in our school got me to watch this.
The thing is, so this was primarily filmed in Scotland, where it's cold and wet, and it was cold and wet when they were doing it.
Boy, howdy. It looked
So-
miserable.
So the
Yeah.
cast doesn't have a lot of good, fun memories of this film. As you read, if you do any Googling of any facts or trivia about this, there's a lot of information out there about this. The guys that created it and wrote it and directed it and acted in it, most of them did their own stunts because they didn't have the money. Most of them, they did a lot of ad-libbing on.
That's amazing to me.
As they were doing it, because they're like, oh, let's change it to this. And they don't need to ask permission. They're the guys who wrote it. So they just did what they wanted to do.
Right.
And there's some really amazing, and as noted, scenes and phrases and actions that are just burrowed into nerddom.
Do you guys have a favorite one? Because anytime I think about this movie, my first thought is, what is your favorite color?
Yes.
Blue. No, green.
For me, it's some wet tot in a lake isn't the basis of a government system. Like
That's very good.
There's so many jokes in here, and some of them, are around like a very politically educated peasants challenging like who can be king and why are they king and why not be an anarcho. What I even forget what he said. It was like an
anarcho commune.
collective. It was
Good
a
British comedy is really dry and really smart.
Yeah.
But before we get too
You
far,
can tell he's the king. He's not covered in shit.
Yes. Because most of those scenes in the very first part were like people rolling around in mud and garbage. It's
we
what?
all point out the person's just crawling into a basket. What's happening?
Right. Yeah. Well, and even in the political sketch too, it's like they're piling up mud for no reason. Like in a
it's
basket.
just for something to do.
Yeah, they're just piling. Two peasants are in the mud, piling up mud, talking to this king and questioning why is he king.
I didn't vote for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Here's a side note. There is no European French dub of the film. It
What?
has never been created
Is it because they make fun of the French.
because they
and
make fun of the French and they
I
want
mean,
the French to just hear
they
the
do say the
English
phrase. What do you think I speak with this outrageous accent?
outrageous accent. Yeah, no, seriously. I'm reading this going like, oh my god, that's hilarious. They force the French to watch it in English. You can watch the subtitled, but you have to listen to them make fun of the French accent, which is hilarious.
That's incredible. So rude and really, really funny.
It is.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberry.
That's Andy Kaufman level funny. So I guess
Well,
I guess he was inspired by them because they came first. But yeah,
This takes place in 945 AD. The historic Arthur would have been a little bit earlier than that. I can't blame Monty Python for being off a couple hundred years. But 1066, William the Conqueror from Normandy sails across the strait. He invades Britain and changes the course of history. The large part of the United Kingdom at that point was held by Frenchmen, Normans, Norman keeps, and it was common for there to be at least one Frenchman in every city. And maybe it was a very lonely life being the one token Frenchman to run this little city.
Was their job to taunt everybody and throw livestock at them?
His job was to extract as much wealth as he could. It was not a pleasant regime to
that's
live
not
under.
fun.
Yeah, and so it wasn't until much later when the British got their mojo back. And it's part of, I think, how
Is that what
Arthur-
Austin Powers is about?
Well, I think it's part of why the Arthur myth is so enduring, because for a while England was the poorest country in Europe. For a while it was occupied by these Norman conquerors. It was a foreign invader who was running everything everywhere you looked. It wasn't a great existence. And have this idea of the once and future king, never mind he borrowed it from the Welsh. It didn't matter. You could take it for your own. You could have this brighter future. You could have something to look forward to. And if you make fun of the French while you do it, and then don't dub it into French later. Well, that's all okay.
So I'm curious, production value wise, Brian, similar to TV. I mean, they treated it almost like a TV sketch from a production value versus a film. Obviously, it's broken into pieces, but
Like an hour and a half of TV sketches.
It's just sketches.
Right. Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it's not a lot different than the Monty Python show. The main difference is they're out on location.
Yeah.
I mean, we already discussed how they had a very low budget, so they had no horses. They used natural light. The 6 or 7 major Monty Python players played almost every role.
And it's a lot of Eric Idle, yeah.
And get on with it.
Every spoken role.
And there's not a lot of costume changes. They've got a couple costumes for each character, and that's about it.
I wonder how they filmed it. Like, in what order did they film these sketches? Because it would make more sense to have filmed the parts where they're all in those same costumes.
We
back to
saw
back.
Scene 24
they
is
used the
central.
same castle,
three
location
times.
at least 3 times.
Yeah.
There was a second castle they used once toward the end of the film.
Castle Urquhart, that was in Scotland.
So when in the film trivia,
I think.
Oh, it's just he literally says, one of the characters says to King Arthur, "Oh, it's just a model." That is actually them standing
I think
in
it's
the
the
distance
horse, right?
to an actual castle. They're making fun of themselves, saying, "We can't even afford to build a freaking little model of a castle. It's a real castle."
That's so good. On the shooting schedule thing, I can't find it now, but the first shot was Lancelot crossing or King Arthur crossing the Death Bridge. The last shot was John Cleese's Lancelot running in that repeating 5-time gag. Again, 5.
Everything's
with
in
the
fives.
drums going, and he's just run. They just go back to the guards and.
So 5 times reminds me. So Blake, I've seen this movie, I'm going to say at least 5 times, legitimately, maybe more. And I never really noticed the joke about how King Arthur keeps mixing up his numbers between 3 and 5 specifically. He'll say, "Oh, we lost Sir Ector, we lost Sir Belvedere, we lost Sir whoever. Oh, that's 5 men." And he's like, "No, my lord, it's only 3."
Yeah, Galahad or someone corrects them.
And then he'll be like,
these questions 5.
Yeah,
No,
what-
3.
Yeah, he's gonna ask us 5 questions. He's like, "No, 3 questions, my lord." And he continually mixes up. He can't count. He can't.
Well, he's the king. He doesn't have to count. That's what he has people for him to count.
He's elected to lead, not to read.
Right.
To steal from The Simpsons.
4 shalt thou not count, neither count thou 2, excepting that thou then proceed to 3.
But I was going to ask Brian about the location joke. I guess in the show, they only ever went to like in front of an old building to do some sketches, kind of, but it was always on a stage.
Most of it was in stage.
I'm sure it's a soundstage on regular
Yeah.
BBC soundstage. And they did their different sketch. I mean, it's just like Saturday Night Live is all at the same place with different backdrops. They did the same thing, but 20 years earlier.
So,
All right. So from a D&D perspective, the Black Knight, how many how many death saves did he make?
flesh
he could have the variant of the 5e trolls where they have a loathsome limb feature where if you deal slashing damage, this is real. I'm not making this up.
They'll lose a limb.
They lose a limb, and the limb acts on its own initiative.
Yeah.
It could be that, except they all just fell off. It could be the DM just being like,
It
all
fell
right.
off and was dead, though.
Yeah,
The main body stayed alive.
It could be they give the guy like enough hit points that he'll stand up. They kill him. Well, okay, limb falls off. He hits him again. Okay, he can't hit him a third time. Hits him again. Okay, fine. He's just gonna be there. I'm not killing this NPC. I worked too hard to build him.
So John Cleese and Terry Gilliam performed all of their own stunts as Arthur and this is the Black and Green Knight, not Arthur.
Yeah, Gilliam played Green and Cleese was Lancelot.
Yeah. So they actually so the opening part of that sketch is them actually doing a lot of sword fighting, and they just practiced it and had fun with it. And they're like, we don't need stunt people. We can just jump around and do this.
You can kind of tell like, they didn't have a sword fighting choreographer.
No.
But
It
I
was
mean,
a
it's
bunch
not
of
It was a
random-
little clumsy.
a little bit. I mean, it's not terrible, but you can tell they were doing this on their own.
It added to the comedy, I thought.
Yeah, they
Right.
practiced for an hour before they rolled film.
Right. But I think, I mean, the point of this movie is not the action; it's the humor.
No, it's a farce. It's a send up of the French.
And well, it is
and Arthurian legend.
Arthurian legend
And British police force.
And I'll say the jokes are so dense. I was going to say earlier, like that 3-5 counting joke. Like I never noticed that in any of my prior viewings. Like there's jokes in here I'd completely forgotten about.
I didn't catch the cat thing until today.
Okay, well, yeah, and the cat.
Or tying the coconut onto a swallow.
That one I have caught before. It makes me laugh every time I see it.
That's amazing.
And the simple fact that towards the beginning of the film, where Arthur is deciding if he wants to visit Camelot or not, and they break into the song and dance routine, which is, if you haven't ever seen Spamalot, if you're a Monty Python fan and haven't seen it, you should go. You definitely got to go see it, because it's actually a really good musical that just plays off of what is said. And they actually, some of the lyrics are about, hey, we need to be, we're pretending to do what we're doing. If you listen to the lyrics or actually read them, it's quite hilarious. They're making fun of themselves.
The choreography is so good. Just kicking fruit off tables and knocking people over and then tap dancing.
Yeah.
It is almost like a variety show, though, where there's humor, there's jokes, there's a story, and then there's songs and dance routines to go with those songs. It is a lot like a 1 hour variety show spun up into a movie.
The only way I would have been happier is if they pulled a hee-haw where two people just pop out of the wall like, hey, Cletus, what's up, Beva? And then like back and forth jokes like, oh, this, or her, and then cuts to the next thing.
I feel hee-haw, that's a very, yeah.
So how would you cut a tree down with a herring?
It's impossible.
You'd have to swing really hard.
really hard.
That's why they had to say it.
Right.
Brian,
the power of words.
Yes,
the power of words.
So it was a nice shrubbery, though.
It was.
Dan, I'm going to ask you. This is set in 945 AD. What was the beer world like in 945? Who was drinking what?
So there's a variation that we sought out where we had beer. We had beer made with grapes, which is a French thing. They sort of invented that.
Oh, well, they'll taunt you. They
will taunt you. Yeah. So this beer sort of taunted us, and then we had. So are we ready to move on? I mean, we're still
let's move on.
Let's move on.
Well, we did something different with the beer in this episode.
Yes. So the intent was, we knew what we were watching, and I wanted to find beers that would go with the film. And instead of just buying beers that I think would taste good, I was like, hey, I need to be inspired by scenes from the film on either can art or what the beer actually is. I sought something with elderberry, but I could not find none. Cider, beer, anything, mead, anything. Like elderberry is not used. I mean, if I might have gone to IKEA, maybe I could have found something. But at this point, it didn't matter.
Does IKEA sell wine?
But they sell like elderberry syrup and sodas and stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't matter.
And meatballs.
And horse meatballs, yes.
Oh, damn, beat me to it.
Yes, lots of horse, which didn't exist in the film, except for the one scene where the horse dude rode by and chopped the historian.
Yeah, some unrelated knight killed a historian and framed.
And the cops got involved. What a great bit!
Yeah. So
we should have put these amazing beers.
We did
interesting beers.
Cider, beer, and beers. And so I want to shout out to John's Marketplace in Southeast again for hooking me up. I went out and I was like, I'm going to scour the shelves. I'm going to find something that's inspirational. And so I came home with a bunch of different stuff. There's a 10 Towers Cider company, Gravitas, which looks like Lady of the Lake with Excalibur and a little tower and a lake and some mountains.
You could have a whole political system based on this.
You could have a whole political system based on this. And this is an English style cider. We started with this before the movie because I was like, we need something to lead up to it, because I wanted to drink the specific beers with those scenes.
Right.
And I was like, well, we need something to start with. So we started with something that was light.
Dear listener, that's different than what we normally do. Yes. Normally we kind of start with the most subtle beers and we get towards the most intense flavors towards the end.
And we pick beers that we think will go with the film.
Yeah.
The enjoyment of drinking the beer will follow our enjoyment of the film.
Right.
And this pick was much more thematic.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have like a triple dry hopped Androit Theory that we did, and there's a Killer Rabbit that's from Block 15 that we did, and then there's this Extravist by Gallia Sauvages out of France. And it's like a wine glass or a wine bottle, and it was amazing because I really had no intention of I have never had any of these beers.
Which is kind of a feat because you're a real connoisseur of trying new stuff.
I am.
You're a big fan.
I've had beers by Androit Theory and Block 15 many, many times. It's just not these specific ones. And so as we started the film again with the English style cider.
Like an unbreakable blade forged in fire, this is our origin story. A perfect coalescence of cold-pressed Pacific Northwest apples and an unyielding spirit. Years in the making. Some call it dignified, others call it destiny. We call it gravitas.
And it was really good and light. I'm glad we started with that.
It was. I would say it was a little
Right.
a little sour. It tastes a little like kind of Granny Smith type apple.
I like Granny Smith. I like those tart, sour flavors. I like sour beer generally. This cider was really good. I think it was right up my alley.
Yes. And so shout outs to the company for providing us a good entry point.
10 Towers Cider Company.
Yeah. Does it say on the bottle where they're from?
They say they're from 10 Towers Cider Company.
Bottled and
Nailed it.
produced.
No,
Usually-
I did not find where they're from.
Aaron's our narrator, not our location researcher.
Hold on.
Location
Rickerall, Oregon. I don't even know where Rickerall is.
Oh my God.
Is it a Rickroll?
It's a Rickroll.
Oh my God. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna
let you down.
I
No,
genuinely
it
thought you
is.
were doing a joke.
It is RICKREALL. Like, so that I guess
Rickroll.
that's a real place.
Rickroll?
I've never heard of it, but
Rickroll?
So
I was thinking never gonna
It's
let
an Oregon
you
brewery
down.
cidery.
Let you
Yes. All right. So thank you for providing us Gravitas, which has a great
desert
logo and interesting label. That's why I bought it. I was like, all right,
Yeah,
this
it's
is like
got
I
a
was looking.
medieval themed logo.
Thematically.
It was-
And ciders
It was a good place to
are an-
start for this film.
very
Ciders
thematic.
are an old form of alcohol. People have been
they
making ciders quite a long time. Certainly, that was how Johnny Appleseed got his start, and I know he was not by any means the first.
Correct. And this was a lighter one. I want to say this was only like
Yeah,
I
so
think it said 6%.
6%.
and dry ciders are also lower carb, which is one reason I drink them often.
Yes.
Nice.
You do. And we know this because we
do.
see you often enough to know that.
So, Brian, lower
We're
carb
friends
relative
outside
to
of
beer,
this.
relative to like lower.
To beer or also other ciders. A
Okay.
sweet cider has more carbs.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And then, so of course, within the third act, third scene, third major,
The
where he
first act
first
of the
act,
film.
third scene. Arthur
They didn't really do
is Arthur's
early
traveling.
in the film. Early in the
Early in
film.
the film, Arthur's
gathering his
traveling.
knights.
He's
Yes,
gathering
First
his
act
knights.
one. Act one, gathering the knights.
The end of the first act is when God sends him on his quest.
Right.
I forgot about the God scene. It's so
That,
good.
that is the action that sets up the rest of the
It
film.
triggers.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the first beer that we enjoyed was If You're Still Breathing,
The Black Knight always triumphs!
which is a double dry hopped Imperial Hazy IPA from Androit Theory, which is out of Purcellville, Virginia.
I've been there.
It's a long ways from home. This
Yeah,
is
it was pretty close to where I
we-
lived.
we-
Actually, I haven't been to that brewery, but I've been to a couple of restaurants in Percival. Pretty good. Pretty good area. Not a lot happening. A lot of
They can
farmland.
see your house from there. So Dan, let's break down double dry hopped,
double dry hopped Imperial Hazy IPA.
double dry Imperial Hazy
So
IPA.
this was
There's a lot in.
There's a lot
Lot of
going
words
on in this.
happening.
All right, a lot of words. So this is like the fifth iteration of this exact beer using different hops.
Okay.
This is known as Ghost 1352. So they have different variations, and they all call them Ghost for some reason because you drink it, it's gone. It's imaginary.
Oh, so not ghost, the ghost.
Ghost.
Okay.
Virginia's haunted as hell, guys.
This
Yeah,
is
all
a-
those Civil War
this is-
graves.
Yeah, dude, it's scary.
So this is
Why do you think I moved?
rebrewed of a hazy at a higher gravity. It's a creamy kind of palate coating. The texture is semi-sweet body, mild bitterness on the finish, which is very true. Mangoes, tropical fruit, and a little bit of. I got strawberries on it. Like it had a fruity.
I was getting more
Strawberry-
grapefruit, like what Aaron's
Yeah.
saying, but I didn't get any tongue coating. I don't think. Well, at least not that I noticed.
When I tasted, the dear listener, when I tasted this, I was like, oh, there's
Mango,
grapefruit,
guava,
and
yeah.
there's more grapefruit, and there's more grapefruit, like,
and fruit grape.
and then fruit grape.
A little
Yeah,
pine and
there was,
dankness.
but there was more complexity than that. Certainly, there was.
So this is a 10.5%. This is an Imperial, which is anything over 8%.
So Dan, so to say, like Imperial describes the ABV.
Alcohol, the ABV.
The hazy describes it's not filtered.
Correct.
Okay, and then double dry
hopped means
they're
they
adding more hop flavor after it's been brewed.
hop pellet upon hop pellet upon hop pellet. So this is dry hopped with Citra. So I'm going to spell this Moutere. Muter? Muter.
They will taunt you a
Nelson-
second time.
And Nelson Salvin. The Citra is going to give you a little bit of the pine. The Muter, which I don't know much about, but the Nelson Savant, those are all I'm assuming floral, citrus based. The floral is what I got more of than not. So it's not a traditional East Coast hazy juice bomb because it doesn't just hit you upside the head with pineapple or something.
Yeah, it
was
wasn't that.
actually very rounded and nice.
It was balanced. It was certainly balanced, but there was a lot of hop going on.
For 10.5% beer, it did not taste like 10.5%.
Yeah, I did not think it was going to
It
be
was
that
a
high.
little bitter. It was the most bitter thing we had tonight, I would say.
Not,
But it didn't hit me over the head.
not unlike
It was
the
drinkable.
kings whose son didn't want to get married. Not bitter at all.
Not bitter at all.
Don't sing. Don't you sing. Don't you start.
Make sure he doesn't leave.
He'll
All
tell
right, we
you
won't
why.
leave
He'll
unless someone
tell
else comes
you
up.
why.
No,
He'll tell
no.
you why.
Yes.
All right, now we're going into bits that if you haven't seen the movie, even if you have, they're so obscure you
They're
won't
very
remember
obscure.
them.
Then a couple of scenes and or parts later, they
Scene 24.
travel upon a castle that has French people.
I fart in your general direction.
What do you think? I have this outrageous accent.
Outrageous accent. Again, we were down at a wonderful bottle shop, and I was looking for French beer and or cider or anything. And that's so. The funny thing is, Blake is teasing me because he has
No, Blake's going to make me break.
I broke somebody. I'm happy.
So when they're in the castle scene, the French guard has his hands like
The way the
really
gauntlets
sharp.
sit, the gauntlets go way up, so his hands look like they're floppy. Like it's
It's
all
you
just
said-
making fun.
If you imagine like you're hopping around like you're a rabbit, and
Or
the
a
way
prairie
that
dog.
the way your hands are when
Yes.
you flop around
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
like you've got them like pointed downwards right in front of you.
But while those were very silly, this was pretty tasty.
This is Extravist by Gallia Sauvages, and this is a vière. So vière is a style of beer that is brewed with grapes, Gewürztraminer grapes from the Alsace region of France, as part of the sugar content. It also has basic malt in it for the foundation of the beer to accentuate not just the grape. Because if you did it with just grapes, it would just be hoppy grape juice.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but
Yes.
I probably like this better.
Hoppy grape juice, not a
Hoppy
bad
grape
thing.
juice is not as good as what this is.
So this was
Great album.
again, we did not think it tasted like a 9.4% beer, but it definitely is a 9.4%.
punches above its weight.
Is that why
Punches
I'm,
way
is that why I'm
above
so
its weight.
vocal and in your face?
Yeah, that's why we're all a little disorganized for the recording here.
So
We also tried 5 different drinks for this.
I thought we drank 3.
episode.
well,
No, it was only 3, my lord.
only 3, my lord.
So Dan, grapes.
Jasmine, roses, and geraniums.
So the wine, so Gewürztraminer is a wine grape. It's
Yes.
typically grown in Alsace or parts of Germany. In
Okay,
the German,
okay.
it actually means spicy grape.
Interesting.
And so I'm not a German expert, but that's what I understand from all my
yes,
drinking. And so, but this is really interesting. I didn't even know there was a category that used wine grapes as the basis of going and making an ale. So
Yes.
to me, this was fascinating. And
Yeah.
like it tasted really, really interesting. It was good.
yeah,
It was
So
very good, and I was
Yeah.
I was happy to have a new experience in beer.
It was really similar to cider. That's all
And
I'm
it
going to
is-
say.
yeah.
It had a
So-
cider approach to the mouthfeel. It was very bubbly. Came in a clear.
But it wasn't as sweet as
wine
the
bottle.
cider we had earlier.
Correct.
Yeah,
For sure. It's very dry.
relatively dry. Yeah.
So this has a Belgian style yeast. So that's where it's going to dry out and give you, again, it's more going to accentuate the fruitiness. I didn't get any fun. The aroma, funky as heck. Smelled
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like garbage.
Or like cheese, like really intense
Really
French
funky cheese. But then you taste it and the palate was just like this medium bodied, but also very carbonated, danced on the tongue a bit. And then it was like grapes, tartness, and a little bit of bitterness on the back. But it really had this really interesting blend of what you would consider a lighter beer with grapes that you would normally have in a white wine, a nice spritzer wine. So I'm very surprised and very, very, very happy that I selected this for us to try.
Indeed.
Because it was just a different experience. And I think it went really well with the part of the film that we were in. When I poured it, I was like, oh, it's a French, and it's a French wine.
The French talking about how your mother was a hamster, your dad smelt of
With
elderberries.
elderberries.
Like, yeah.
And-
And like, so this, there are some castle.
I think this was the funky smell one.
Yeah, this was the funky smell one. So
I was just gonna say, there's a typo on the label.
Yeah, well, it's a French label. What do you expect?
So,
Wow. Sorry, French listeners.
Oh, SmackDown.
Sorry if my one extended family member listens to this.
Wow.
Well, she's Swiss,
that's
but she
nice.
speaks French.
But it's okay though. So
We love the Swiss.
the name
and
of
their
the beer.
very private banking system.
So we only did.
So, yeah, we did 4. This one it did have a smell that, like, honestly, if somebody had like just invented this for the first time and they're like, do I want to put this in my body or not? That
Probably
smell
not.
would have dissuaded most people, and I appreciate the courage that the first person had to say, like, no, that maybe this will taste good after all, because the smell is funky. But
And
once you
it's-
have it,
yes.
once you have it, it works and it makes sense and it tastes
You
good.
get past that smell really quickly because it
Right.
doesn't linger on the palate once you taste it.
Yeah.
It opens up. If you've ever had Gewürztraminer, we know that that's a light white grape that can be trocken or not. And so trocken meaning dry or
Thank you. I was
semi-dry
about to ask.
or not dry.
Dry or semi-dry,
Semi-dry,
usually,
sweet.
yeah.
So Alsace region of France makes this kind of wine as well.
A little
And
bit. Typically,
France
it's
and
German.
German next to each other.
Sometimes you'll find it from places like South Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll grow it in like the cold parts of Australia, Tasmania, but really Germany, the Rhone River Valley, like that's Germany's like the famous region for Gewürztraminer. For a long time, Chardonnay was the real sexy wine that everybody wanted to drink, and Gewürztraminer was cheap. By comparison, you could get a really nice wine just because it was out of fashion.
It sounds funnier than Chardonnay.
It does, but it's light, it's well balanced, and most of the situations where a light, kind of flinty, steely Chardonnay is going to work, Gewürztraminer is going to work just as fine too. If you got that kind of meal, you could definitely use that. It can be have some kind of sometimes a little bit of like an oily quality to it, but it's a really nice wine usually, and it's like I said, it's less expensive than a lot of the more fashionable ones are.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just people don't know how to say it as well as they can say, I'd like a Chardonnay. The Gewürztraminer is harder to pronounce.
It is.
I'll get one for
Unless
Yeah.
you're in a German restaurant or
Indeed.
a wine bar that is serving it and does not have the other.
And then there's not the language barrier.
Correct.
That's when you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
point to the menu and say, "This, please," like I do in
Yes.
every Chinese restaurant I've ever been to.
I'll have what she's having.
Yes, you will.
Where's
All
Meg
right,
Ryan?
So-
she's eating with Billy Crystal. I want what she's eating.
So one of the next to last groups or scenes was the wonderful troupe of Arthur and his
Knights of the Round Table.
Knights of the Round Table
His niggets.
approached
Kniggets.
a cave.
Don't love that we're saying that word the way we were saying
Oh,
it.
geez. Yeah, but
Yep.
niggets.
I know what you're doing. I know what we're
That's
saying.
what the French said.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
it
don't
is.
like.
all the French.
Didn't like how the French said it
Indeed.
either.
So, yeah, dear
It's
listener,
very
the
funny.
UK and the French don't have the difficult racial history of the United States.
No.
They have a different
And
one,
they-
but
yeah, they do.
Australians could also say the C word and it sounds cute. So
Yeah, they
anyway,
call
the
they call
scene-
their best friends that, and it's
Yep.
like it's a good old Anglo-Saxon word from a long time ago that is real offensive everywhere else. Anyhow, Dan is going to say something useful.
All right, so
About our
the-
final beer.
Our final,
I'm sure.
the last beer that we had was in conjunction with the Holy Hand
Delightful.
Grenade of Antioch.
Behold the cave of Carbano.
Because there's a killer bunny rabbit out there. And the beer that we had has a beautiful killer bunny rabbit on the label that
Guard your
looks
vegetables.
just like the bunny rabbit in.
Oh my
The
God,
film.
there it is.
And it's called Charmed Life.
Did you really not
And
see it,
this
or is
is-
this a bit?
No, I really didn't see it.
Really. So this is a Irish style red ale from Block 15, which is down in
So you know I
Corvallis.
love it.
So 5% ABV. It's low bitterness, big on flavor.
Yum yum.
Really malty on the front. The nose just smells like caramel. It has
Actually, Dan, is there any left?
there were 4 cans, and I think we drank
bummer.
them all. That's
Oh, well.
why I moved over to something else.
I do. If you want me to pour out
Nah,
some,
I'll live.
Okay,
I'll
all
live.
right.
I appreciate it.
So the best descriptions that I found of this using words that have more than one syllable was robust, chestnut, grassy, hop, tiny, sweet on the back end. When the hop squinches,
I haven't heard the word squinch in a while.
it squinches the tongue. So there is a little bit of sharp dryness on the back with
Yeah.
this, which is appropriate for this style of an Irish style ale.
Yeah.
It's red. It has a nice kind of off-white, foamy. It stuck around a little bit because some of us, we most of the beers and alcohol that we drank tonight and water was poured into a glass because I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit.
Well, I
instead
poured
of
this
just-
in a glass also, and I loved it.
It looked very appropriate. It was kind of a darker red color, and it looked really nice.
This was the lowest ABV of any of the ones we had. This is clocking
Yes.
in at only 5%.
Yes.
Which Low on bitterness, but big on flavor, this medium-bodied red ale offers a pleasant malty nose with a subtle caramel flavor that balances with a clean finish. What a charmed life indeed.
Yes. So Charmed Life is the name of the beer. Block 15. Thank you for making good beer because we've done a
big fan
few
of Block
episodes with
15.
their beers and
Yeah.
they've been around a long time and they do
Yeah.
some really interesting stuff.
If you want true believers in the comic book style of Marvel Comics where Stan Lee pops up, listen to episode 20, 30 where we talk about the ones that we worked with them on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like Block 15, I know I've had other beers by them that they've brewed, and like I've always been happy with it. It's a high quality outfit.
Yeah.
They do good work. I don't think there's ever been a Block 15 beer that I've not enjoyed. I like red ale to begin with.
Same.
So this
Same.
Irish red, it's something that I kind of like to begin with, and this is a really good example of one.
A Scottish or Irish, it doesn't matter. It's all in that part of the country.
So Brian, you're not big on hops. How do you feel about malty stuff?
I like malty stuff.
Yeah, that's what we get along.
Of the 4 we tried tonight, Charmed Life was my favorite,
I'm with you there.
but only slightly. I really enjoyed the vière, the
Vière.
Vière.
The
Aaron can say it.
What would be called a grape ale.
grape ale, the extraversed by Gallia Sauvages.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
that-
really enjoyed the experience of that.
Cavalli sausage.
Yeah, it was distinctive. It was distinctive.
It was
Yeah.
distinct. It was interesting. My background is Alsatian, so I enjoyed a beer from my home
Shout
country.
out.
Cool.
I enjoyed the other 2 things we had also. I mean, we know I like ciders. The triple dry hopped
Yes.
ale, right?
It's big and giant, but
It
is
was
not
big and
scary.
giant, but it was better than
Expected.
expected, better than a normal IPA.
Yeah.
None of
I was
those-
expecting it to be gigantic and huge, but it's like, oh, it's really high in alcohol, so it's really sweet. It had the sweetness
Yeah.
kind of pushes back a little bit. And Blake is reading this.
It went down. They all went down pretty
I was
easy.
gonna say, all of these were nice beers. I think each of them had matched a different element of Monty Python in a different way.
Correct.
They're all beers that you could enjoy this movie with. I mean, the episodic nature and shifting gears so much. Yeah, I mean, you probably could be
Worked
like us
with
and
the
drink
sketch comedy.
3/5 years,
Yeah.
if you can't count. Through the
Almost
film.
5.
Yeah, but no, they all. I think they all worked with the film. I mean, I've got my favorite too. The extra Wiener was so distinctive and so different from anything I've had, and that funky nose leading into something unexpected on the palate when you drink it. That was
And
a
watch
real
out for that
pleasant-
rabbit being launched at you over the castle wall.
Boy, that
Or
the cow.
the duck.
Prepare Or the the vache.
the one
Yeah.
live duck.
Right.
He actually called it vache, which is a French word for duck. Or I mean cow.
Cow.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, you did, and we all know, ducks float on water, and
'Cause
they weigh-
ducks-
Just
Ducks are
like
ma-
witches.
And witches
wood.
are made of wood.
And if-
so
And if they both float and one weighs more than the other, then it's not a witch.
that woman was a witch, right? Like when
She
they
really
weighed, she's
was,
like,
yeah.
ah man.
Yeah, no, it turned out. Yeah, it turned out she weighed the same as a duck, and so it happened to be correct. As
What a great bit. As one of the only women with a speaking role in this entire movie. One of the 2.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guess Zot. And
no,
Yeah.
in Castle
Yeah.
Anthrax
Yeah.
there are
Castle,
many.
There's
There are
it's-
so many we couldn't do the math to figure out how many.
and you must spank us
Yes, and then spank all of us.
because that's what they do.
That's the punishment.
Yeah, I mean they messed
Punishment.
up. Zot
Right.
messed up.
So we were really trying to make an effort to hydrate while we watched this because these were
but
higher alcohol.
We were trying, but we can handle a little peril.
We can handle a little peril and a little Castle Anthrax.
Sir Aaron, the cowardly.
brave Sir Aaron.
Brave Sir Robin.
Yes. So if you enjoy some musical bits, go check out the film at some point. Go check out, if you like musicals on the theater, Spamalot in Vegas, really good. I think it's still playing. I know it shut down during COVID, but I think it's back on. I saw
think
it
they're
a number of years ago. and
It's
it
the
was
same
really
level as Book of Mormon, where like people just everyone seems to agree this is an incredible musical.
good. Yeah,
But
it's really well
Well,
done.
I can't speak for Spam a lot, but for Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like absurdist comedy, absurdist comedy done really, really well. It does hold up. From 1975.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, going into this movie to see it again, I was actually a little disappointed to be like, oh, we're watching this? Because I've seen it, several times already.
Yeah.
My initial thought was like, this film can be somewhat overrated because I know so many people in like the nerd gamer community that I'm connected to, they rate this as like 10 out of 10. They quote the movie constantly. It's always coming up. There's references to it so frequently. And my recollection is like, it's a good movie, but it's not 10 out of 10. And watching it again tonight, I enjoyed it more than I had expected to.
But by yourself, I would say it's mildly entertaining.
Yeah.
Right.
With a group of friends, especially friends who have seen it before,
Yeah.
it's a very fun movie.
And-
It's
yeah.
well worth seeing with friends.
Indeed. And if you got the right beers to match, that elevates it to just that next level.
Or cider or beer that's made with grapes or
Right.
whatever you can find that's kind of interesting. It's a light drinking movie. You don't want to just pound them away as some people do. I wanted to really make sure that I was like, all right, we're going to do a bunch of water in between each of these beers because these are bigger beers and we split them. We did not do a single can each except for the last one. And it was like,
and that was plenty.
and it was. And I'm glad that we had this opportunity to share a wonderful comedic film that we haven't done in a while. We haven't done anything super funny. And this was pretty damn funny. I mean, it's been a while.
It's been a minute, yeah.
Was National Treasure a comedy? Do we think?
Not intentionally.
It was not. So, I don't know. You guys have any final thoughts?
I'd say stay sober so you could see the violence inherent in the system.
Was Shaun the Dead the last comedy we did? That's my thought.
I think so.
I think that's true.
That was
Zombie
a long
rom-com.
time ago. Yeah. All right. So, as always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this recording are those of the host. And again, hydrate, because if you don't,
And then put in like 5 minutes of silence.
well,
And then
the screen
you'll hydrate.
blinking
Yeah.
different colors of black for the last credit scene. Yeah.
like
Which there are
room
none.
tone of just like crackle sound like, is he about to talk? Or
What's going on? What's going on?
let me think. I don't know. If you do not hydrate, you will hydrate.
Yeah, there you go. The French would say that. And, as always, thanks for listening and hanging out. We really appreciate your ability to listen to us for a little bit because we can get kind of annoying sometimes. But you know what? I love having this
annoying,
opportunity to
but
share
never,
the love. Share the love and spread the love.
Let's talk about me, Aaron.
And
You're fine.
it's all good. So this is Dan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
This is Aaron. Thank you for listening, and good luck on your Grail quest, whatever it might be.
This is Blake. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
And this is Brian. Thank you so much for listening. You English dogs.
Pig dogs.
Big dogs. Bye.